All right. I think this is an exercise that's kind of meaningful for you and you and you to do on your own, sitting at your own computer, or make your own YouTube video in response to this one. I think it's actually meaningful to reflect on your own life and ask yourself, what is the most conservative thing I have ever done or said? And ask yourself also, what's the most left-wing thing I've ever done and said? And this is not merely meaningful because it's a reflection on who am I and what's the meaning of my life. It's meaningful also because it forces us to reflect on what is this political category called conservative? What does that mean now in 2019? I don't think it means the same thing in 2019 that it meant in 1999. And I think right now, the very concept of what it is to be a conservative, it's really quite unstable. It's really quite volatile and shifting, even if people who are like political insiders within that category, they may not have any clear plan or vision of what this is supposed to be or become in the future, but that can make it all the more unstable, right? I don't consider myself a conservative. I would never describe myself as conservative, but I know there are reasons why other people sometimes describe me as conservative. And it's sometimes because I'm in the middle of a political movement where people share the ideology of John Sackars.
Capitalism ain't working. There are problems we gotta stop shirking. It's time for post-capitalism. Yes, comrades.
Money isn't even real, it's imaginary. We're destroying the biosphere, something that's real, for money, something that's imaginary. That makes zero sense.
But we are not okay, despite what capitalists say. People work at jobs all day when they would rather play.
John Sackars, the bad stereotype of the anti-capitalist fool. The last time I saw that guy, he was wearing sneakers, like Nike sneakers, brand name sneakers, but he had covered up the logo with the words "End Capitalism." So, when you show up at an event and everyone is so far on the left wing that they're degrees separated from communism, and in some cases they're overtly communist. Yeah, I understand why in some contexts people perceive me as a conservative. Anyway, the topic of this video came up. I was having a sincere and somewhat deep conversation with J.J. McCullough about what is the meaning of the word conservative. I said, exactly in this way I challenged him. When you reflect on your own life, do you have a story, do you have an anecdote where you think, yeah, that was the most conservative thing I ever said or did? And he did. He had a story. One came to mind. So the word conservative still means something. You know what I mean? If reflecting on your own life, you can come up with something like that, that's going to indicate to you that maybe even just implicitly, maybe just in an unexamined way, you still have a strong sense of what the word conservative means. And maybe in your case, it's something you did, in a kind of spontaneous or unplanned way. Anyway, J.J. McCullough's got to make his own video telling that story. It's not my story to tell. It's a good anecdote to tell. For me, reflecting on that, what came to mind was this bizarre situation when I was living in Cambodia, doing social science research. And at that time, I was a member of the Buddhist faith, and I would describe myself actively as an Orthodox Theravada Buddhist. And a lot of people here in the decadent West imagine that Buddhism is a tremendously liberal and liberating religion. Well, it is if you were born Muslim. If you were born Muslim and you convert to Theravada Buddhism, you'd find it very liberal and liberating, no doubt. Probably if you were born conservative Jewish, conservative Catholic, what have you. However, the religion itself is in many ways fundamentally conservative, as even the adjective orthodox might suggest to you. And I was a scholar in the religion. I was studying the ancient texts. And I had the feeling, a feeling I still can't quite shake, that most of what was wrong and bad with the religion were things that had crept in afterwards, later historical accretions or corruptions. And that, if the religion could kind of clean up its act. Yeah. Not going to make this into a video about Buddhism, but I'm just mentioning this is the context for for why, in this sense, in this anecdote, I said and did the most conservative thing I've ever did in my life. So I'm living in Cambodia. I'm pursuing a combination of humanitarian work and research, and it's including at this time, and also languages and history and politics, all that stuff too. But at this time, I'm earning my money doing research in the humanitarian sector. And there's a new client announced at the firm. So this is a for-profit company doing research in the nonprofit sector. Tricky business. The new client is Mary Stopes. Now, if you don't know the name Mary Stopes, the worst stereotypes you could possibly have about 19th century eugenics and racism, all of the conservative fear-mongering about Planned Parenthood, all the stuff that's bullshit about Planned Parenthood, it's literally true of Mary Stopes. And she took these crazy theories and prejudices of 19th century eugenics, and she brought them into the 20th century, let me tell you. We literally have, evidence of Mary Stopes writing letters to Adolf Hitler, of her approving of Adolf Hitler, and approving of him because of his eugenics and racism. We have tomes and tomes of her explaining her insane, racial theories. And these theories, they really did hurt people. She specifically endorsed, kind of slow motion genocide by sterilizing men with x-rays, having x-rays intentionally put on the testicles to sterilize them. And when I was doing research on Canada's Native people, Canada's First Nations, or American Indians, whatever you want to say, I read accounts of that being done, of men being sterilized through exactly these racist eugenic policies. Those were government policy primarily in the westernmost provinces, the two provinces furthest west. It's a very interesting history. But anyway, these were influential ideas. It's the worst kind of proto-Nazi, you know what I mean? And she was an elitist. A lot of her theories about abortion and birth control were all about repressing and suppressing poor people. And she actually, in a sense, she was worse than Adolf Hitler because she actually wanted to divide up everyone in the population. She wanted to classify the population of England and give them a grade for how good their DNA was, like A1, A2, A3, B1, B2. She actually wanted a social hierarchy of who was allowed to breed and how much, and this kind of thing. She wanted forced breeding of the best people and forced sterilization of the worst people. This is fucking the nightmare client for me in every way. All right, I'm an Orthodox Theravada Buddhist, at least in my own mind. Genetically and ancestrally, I'm Jewish. I'm not a member of the Jewish religion. So my family has a direct connection to the horrible history of, genocidal eugenics theories of this kind. And I'm Canadian. I'm from Canada. I grew up in the ashen remains of the tragedy of Canada's own slow motion genocide that very much included these same British Empire eugenics theories and themes. And I'm at the office when this comes in. Okay, the new project is this, and we're gonna have a small meeting. Probably there were 4 people at the meeting to talk about this new client, this new project. And I go through the internet really quick because I've got to double. This isn't something I've studied intentionally. Going through it's like, okay, I better double check what I think I know about Mary Stopes, this foundation, and its the history of the Eugenics Society. I think I went to archive.org, and I'm looking at a digitized archived photograph of the letter she wrote to Adolf Hitler. All this horrible stuff out of her personal life and horrible racist theories. You're looking at like a photograph of the first printing, whether you're seeing the real document. I go to this meeting, and this is the most conservative thing I've ever done. I said, look, guys, I'm an Orthodox Theravada Buddhist, okay? I see my future and my career as being a scholar in that religion, as doing humanitarian work in that religion, as working with Buddhist monasteries and working with Buddhist monks and this stuff, this is what I see in my future, okay? If this company is going to do a project with the Mary Stopes Foundation, with, a name, Mary Stopes, that's directly linked to Adolf Hitler. This is, it's directly linked to eugenics and racism, and it's not just abortion as a vague concept here. This is really loaded. My name can't be on it. Okay, I can't have my name on any of these projects. I can't be involved. I can't be part of authoring this report or doing this research. As I know, look, I'm not going to walk out of the room or something. I'm not going to protest. I'm not going to obstruct you. But like you guys, you have enough researchers in this company. Assign somebody else to it because my name can't be on it. And that was a real conservative moment. And everyone in the room was like, "Whoa!" I remember there was one guy in the room. He had a PhD. At that time, he was cheating on his wife with a Cambodian prostitute. And it was the most expensive kind of Cambodian prostitute. It was a karaoke singer. I never met her, never saw her. Within like a week of us having that conversation, the prostitute, maybe she phoned his house or something. Somehow, his wife discovered the prostitute. His wife packed up and left that night, destroyed his marriage. His whole life was ruined. Really, the particular circumstances were terrible. He was living his, ridiculous, self-indulgent life. I remember this guy who's sleeping with the prostitute. Yeah, he was an Australian with a PhD in psychology. He'd just finished his PhD. I think he hadn't actually received the paper yet. He said the stupidest thing to me. He said, "Well, Mary Stopes, she approved of Adolf Hitler, but that was before." And I said to him, "Before what? Before Mein Kampf?" I wasn't laughing then. Yeah. So, I've made a video already stating my view on abortion. I think I'm a moderate on that. I don't think my position on it is left-wing or conservative, but I've had fan mail from both left-wingers and conservatives saying, "Wow, your approach to the issue, it's something new, it's something different, it's maybe something positive." Because right now, certainly in the United States of America and in other countries too, the whole question of whether or not you can have a meaningful discourse between conservative and whatever the opposite of conservative is, it's very much hung up on this one point of the legality of abortion.
Capitalism.
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 I'm trying to live on not much money, but you're even going farther with that and living without money.
Yes, I'm just sharing with you. So you're helping me live without money, yes.
And you've done a lot of couch surfing like I have. It's been over 3 years now where I haven't paid rent anywhere. I've just been traveling around and couch surfing. And when home base is still the Niagara region, Toronto area for me. And I have siblings who have let me stay with them. And I try to help out. But I know sometimes I still feel like a mooch once in a while. And you said you've experienced that too a little bit, maybe feeling like a mooch. How do you deal with that?
I'd say I feel the perception from others that they think we're mooches. And I don't want them to feel that way. It's, I think, a condition of the way that we are grown up in the community. They don't think so much about the waste, the overproduction. They want everyone to participate in the community, even if we have an overabundance and it's not being shared and there's people's needs not being met that don't have money to have those needs met in that system. So I think some people think, okay, yeah, great, you're a freegan, but you're using my money. You're using my couch, you're using my food, you're using my car. I would hope that they would be open to consider it as sharing.
A capitalist system.
Capitalism.
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 So say again in closing the video, I do not consider myself a conservative. It's not a term I use to describe who I am or what I do, much less what I believe. But it's interesting why other people call me a conservative. I was on an internet discussion forum, voice chat, and I was screamed at and insulted and kicked out by a left-winger who was a moderator because as she said, my insistence on facts and statistics was implicitly right-wing. That was the claim. So, real quick, two topics that came up where I was taking a facts and figures approach to reality. Other people in the chat just said really lazily, oh, well, Japan has a really high suicide rate. Now, of course, they were saying this as one step on an ideological staircase. They're building their case. They're building up to, a much wilder left-wing hypothesis. But I'm not interested in the crazy ideological claims. I'm like, wait a minute. Why do you say Japan has a high suicide rate compared to the United States? Compared to Russia? Compared to what? Let's do a Google search here. Let's talk about it. What is the rate of suicide in Japan? And why do you think that? Where did you get that assumption from, right? That's what I'm interested in. And guess what? If you do a Google search, go ahead. You compare the suicide rate in Japan to the United States and Russia. Draw your own conclusions. But what's interesting to me in that conversation is, where did your assumption come from? Like, how did this become a left-wing talking point? In another conversation, I think this is the one where she freaked out and kicked me out. It's in this context, one or the other. I was in the middle of a conversation with people about drug policy. Well, you know what? That wasn't even the topic of the conversation. Someone just jumped on the mic and started justifying some crazy left-wing ideological claims by pointing to Switzerland and Portugal and claiming that drugs have been totally legalized there, claiming that, like, in Switzerland and Portugal, anyone can just buy cocaine and anyone can just buy heroin the same way you buy a tube of toothpaste, that it's completely legalized. And they were claiming, so that's only step one. Then we get into the next step, building this ideological stairway to heaven. The next claim is that since this happened, crime rates declined dramatically, and the rate of drug use and the rate of drug addiction declined dramatically. The people were using less and less cocaine, less and less heroin, because now it was legal and readily available. And wait a minute, I think we're just a few Google searches away. Shall we just find out what the actual law and courts and procedures are in Switzerland and Portugal? Yeah, that was something I'd done a little bit of reading about earlier because of a debate that took place on this channel. Debate that ended my friendship with the person I was debating with. So I had an idea, but you know what? Just a few Google searches. There's some good articles on that. And guess what? The first step on your stairway to heaven is false. So can we talk about that? Can we talk about the facts? So if we live in a time where that trait makes you right-wing or makes you conservative, that tells us something about what does the left-wing category mean. Who do they think they are? And it may tell us something indirectly about what is the conservative category. Who do they think they are? Or who now, in the next 10 years, is going to migrate over to that category and start creating a new idea of the future, because they have no other place on the political spectrum that they can be.
I mean, really, people like to disrespect my crew, but the fact is that you know my name and I don't know you.